Hello again, and welcome to the 21st of December, and this edition of the TooFatLardies Advent Calendar for 2023. And behind this window, Richard and Nick have asked me to consider what has been the most interesting build or painting project that I worked on in 2023. What inspired it? How did I achieve it? And what on earth am I going to do with it? So looking back over the course of the year, I've enjoyed lots of different things about the hobby. I've really enjoyed meeting new friends, meeting old friends, playing games up and down the country. But foremost amongst those things have been the figures and the terrain that I've painted and built. Many of those have been appearing at wargame shows and games days up and down the country. But it's hard to say, looking at the year, what's been the most interesting build or painting project. That's probably because I've only had a couple of projects to explore, which is my smaller games of Flashing Blades and When the Last Sword's Drawn. Those are two games which are based around a very small table, 18-inch board in fact, and a low figure count. And the reason I've only been doing those two things are very much to do with my work, which unfortunately seems to be getting more and more intrusive as I get older. I thought it was supposed to be the other way around. And also the familiar demands of family life that I know so many of you share. But we're not here to talk about the difficulties of not having enough hobby time. We're really here to talk about what worked this year and why one of the projects I did was really quite different. When I started out in January 2023, the emphasis for the first couple of months of the year was really on table space. I'd been playing on these smaller boards for quite some time, and I really wanted to try and push things a little bit more. And more precisely, to try and increase the portability of a game. Now, Flashing Blades is a pretty small game at the best of times. It does fit within a couple of holdalls, carrier bags, and several of those plastic, really useful boxes. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to really push it and create a version of one of those games based around swordplay and heroism, which would be so portable that I could take it easily in a single box and a bag of terrain cloth and associated bits and pieces to a gaming cafe in London in the evening after work. So the game had to be capable of being brought on the morning commute, stored out of the way in the office, carried on the London tube, presented at a gaming cafe, everything in one box apart from the terrain cloth, and then packed away and brought home at the end of the evening. So that's the project design metric, if you like. The emphasis was really on portability and getting a game compressed into a small space. I needed to start with a box. So I chose a simple A4 box with a lid, 36 by 28 by 8 centimetres, so not large at all. Now, one of the things that I thought I might be able to do was to shrink the size of the figures. In a way, that would have been really, really easy. You can get an awful lot in 6mm or 10mm figures in a box that size. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that that really wasn't meeting the requirement of what I wanted. I really wanted to have the same sort of figures and the same game as I was having on a slightly larger table. But I just wanted that to be much more portable. The concept I had was of a skirmish set in a Japanese medieval temple in midwinter. Something which had some terrain which was reminiscent of temples in medieval Japan, but also had a selection of colourful figures which would really stand out against the snowy, wintry tabletop. I wasn't quite sure that the hull was viable as a game or a modelling experience. I was always conscious that the parameters of having a portable game were pressing in on what I could actually construct. I kept looking at the box and thinking, everything I want to put into the box is never going to fit in there. I had to get 3D printed trees, a statue of Lord Buddha, a Japanese torii shrine gate into the box, and it was really quite difficult to 3D print everything so it all fitted in. I kept wondering whether I was actually responding to an opportunity or I was just restricting myself in a really frustrating manner to a size which was completely self-imposed. But I kept coming back to this thought that if one has a really small table or a small board, all of the focus is going to be on that snapshot, that image, that moment in time. And that really played alongside the visuals I wanted to try and create. When I thought about the rules as well, the rules that we'd been using for flashing blades and when the last sword is drawn cover all different sort of aspects of fighting sword play in 17th century France or medieval Japan. But what I wanted to try and do was really pare down the size and the shape of the rules I'd written to the absolute bare minimum. I thought I could lose rules relating to distance, different stages of a longer game. This wasn't really a skirmish. This was just a small part of a skirmish, a series of orchestrated, deadly moments right at the heart of the action. A game which, in gaming terms, could be played in 30 minutes, but still gave the opportunity for different tempos within the game to take place. And it needed to be something which was turned around so that each player played each side, at least once. So what I tried to do in thinking about the rules, I really tried to pare it all down to 3 core themes in the game. Swordplay, honour, and also the way in which blood is a recurring theme in Japanese art, literature, cinema, and modern media. So in February 2023, I went down with a couple of great friends, Des and Sean, and we tried out the game at the excellent Bad Moon Cafe in South London, just near Borough Market. We played the game 3 times in the evening. We were able to swap the different roles within the game, and a few people came over and asked about it. Hopefully it looked good, although I did realise that although I'd shrunk the game, I'd failed to shrink all the player information cards, which kind of bloated over the table. So that was a note that even a concept which is fairly circumscribed, there's always things that you don't really think about until you allow it to have first contact really in a public space. But what did I learn from this project, which for a wargaming project was actually finished? I was quite pleased with the fact that I'd had an idea, shrinking down the essence of a bigger game into a smaller game so it's portable, so we can play it in an evening with friends. That was a proof of concept which hopefully I demonstrated to myself could be achieved, and also in a fairly quick timescale. It really only took me about 3 or 4 weeks to put the whole together. It had been a long-term goal to really create something like this. I'd had a go with 2mm a while back and also 6mm, but this was the time which I felt I'd really kind of cracked what I was trying to do. And I felt that it was really inspiring to have gone through a project and actually finished a project on time and been able to deliver it. I liked the way that I was able to compress something into its essence, whether it was the rules or the terrain or the size of the game or the playing duration. Each one of those 3 games we played was only really about 30 minutes long. I also really enjoyed the fact that I was trying to look at a war game in a different way, something which was much more compact, something which was shorter, and, as we were playing in a games cafe, something which I also felt was compatible with some of the sizes of games and time frames which were being played all around us. If you like, this was a contact between a historical war game and a younger generation of games, often board games of a similar size, of a similar duration, perhaps also being played by a slightly different age generation. But I liked the way that we tried to place historical wargaming in an environment which it could really compete and hopefully attract interest amongst other games within a games cafe. So, by the end of the project, I felt I'd learnt a lot. I'd started in a direction which I'd always wanted to do. I tried to achieve and deliver a game on time with my friends in a particular location, but I felt during that progress I'd also had a different insight into the things which brought out the particular style of fighting that I wanted to achieve. Something which, although it was only at the start of the year, has helped me throughout the whole of 2023, and that's why that's my project for the year.